What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're getting closer and closer to actual basketball being played again, and you can feel it. September is here, and that means training camp is right around the corner. That little lull between the summer league hype and the real preseason buzz is almost over. And when it comes to the Boston Celtics, the offseason questions are starting to shift from speculation to anticipation. What's that last roster spot going to look like? Is there one more move in Brad Stevens' back pocket before the season tips off? Probably. The only question is, when is it coming? But this morning, we got something a little extra, something unexpected that got the gears turning and made me rethink the entire conversation around ownership in the NBA. We're going to circle back to the Celtics in a second, but first we need to talk about this wild story involving the Clippers, Steve Ballmer, and Kawhi Leonard. If you haven't heard yet, buckle up. Apparently, there's a report floating around, and it's not just some rumor mill nonsense, that Kawhi Leonard was allegedly involved in a $28 million endorsement deal with a fake tree planting company. A company that, surprise, surprise, happened to be secretly funded by Clippers owner Steve Ballmer, allegedly dropping $50 million into it. Why? To essentially hand Kawhi money under the table and sidestep the salary cap rules. Yeah, we're talking full-on cap circumvention. And if this proves to be true, it's not just some slap-on-the-wrist situation. We're talking massive implications, not just for the Clippers, but potentially for how teams and owners around the league operate moving forward. And look, this isn't new. We've all heard stories over the years of players supposedly taking pay cuts with the promise of ownership stakes or under-the-table benefits. Think Tom Brady in New England, where everyone believed he left money on the table so the Patriots could build a better team around him, except they barely ever did. Or Dirk Nowitzki staying with Dallas forever on sweetheart deals, and people assuming Mark Cuban was going to hook him up with some kind of post-career ownership role. But those were mostly speculation, the wink-wink, nod-nod type stuff. This Clipper situation? It's reportedly happening in real time. And now, they may be about to get slammed for it. Let me paint a little context here. If this turns out to be legit, the punishment could be severe. We've seen it before. Remember Joe Smith and the Minnesota Timberwolves? That whole ordeal cost the team 5 first-round picks, voided his contract, and eliminated their bird rights advantage to re-sign him. And that was just for quietly sneaking some future contract promises into a backroom deal. If the Clippers really funneled millions into a fake company just to keep Kawhi happy and paid off the books, we're talking about a whole new level of violation. And here's where it gets even wilder. The Clippers already mortgaged their future for Paul George, sending a mountain of first-round picks to the Thunder. And now they barely have any draft capital left for the rest of the decade. Like, legitimately, their next real first-round pick might not come until 2030. So if the league decides to hand out a punishment similar to the Joe Smith situation, or worse, it could wipe out the little future flexibility they still have. It's honestly a cautionary tale. And I say that because heading into this new era of Celtics ownership under Bill Chisholm, there's been a lot of excitement. New blood, fresh ideas, a chance to make some bold moves. But after seeing what's allegedly happening in Los Angeles, you kind of hope Chisholm is watching this unfold and taking notes. Because there's a fine line between aggressive and reckless. And to be fair, the early signs in Boston have actually looked promising. The new ownership group, led by Chisholm and backed by a financial institution, shelled out billions to buy the team. And immediately, they started making moves that showed they weren't just going to sit back and burn cash. Trading away Drew Holiday, moving off Kristaps Porzingis. All those decisions weren't just basketball-related. They were clearly aimed at getting the team under that ballooning luxury tax line. Boston was staring at $500 million in potential payroll and tax costs for a single season. And this was after getting bounced in the second round. So, yeah, trimming that number down under $220 million, that wasn't just smart, it was necessary. But here's the key difference between what's happening in Boston and what's allegedly going down in LA. Transparency. Chisholm might be cutting costs, but he's doing it through the front door. Nothing sneaky. No shadow corporations. Just smart cap management. That's how you want your owner to operate. Be involved, yes. Spend money when it makes sense. But don't get in the way of basketball operations. Don't compromise the franchise's future just to make a splash. And that's why I used to think Steve Ballmer was the model. Seriously, up until like an hour ago, if you'd asked me who I wanted Bill Chisholm to emulate as an owner, my answer would have been Steve Ballmer without hesitation. The dude's energetic, he's always at games, he clearly cares, and he's not afraid to open the wallet. He built a new arena so the Clippers could stop playing second fiddle to the Lakers in the same building. He kept ticket prices reasonable. He even flew fans out to Denver for big games. From the outside looking in, he looked like the dream owner, rich, passionate, and fan-friendly. But if this latest story turns out to be true, that whole image shatters. Because now we're talking about a guy who allegedly tried to cheat the system by creating fake partnerships and dodging the salary cap. That's not visionary leadership. That's cutting corners. And it's a reminder that sometimes the people we think are setting the gold standard might just be getting away with more than we realize. So yeah, as much as I want Chisholm to bring a fresh energy to Boston, I also want him to stay in his lane. Let the basketball people do the basketball stuff. Let Brad Stevens build the roster. Let Joe Mazzulla coach the team. And when it's time to make a real impact, like building a new arena or investing in the next generation of stars, then go big. But don't get caught up trying to outsmart the league, because the league always catches up. Back to the Celtics for a second. This is a team that's still in an incredible position. Jason Tatum is entering his prime. The core is still intact. The Eastern Conference is competitive, but wide open. And if Boston stays disciplined, stays smart, and avoids the kind of drama that's now circling around the Clippers, they could be setting themselves up not just for one good season, but for a real run over the next few years. But again, everything starts at the top. Ownership matters more than people think. It sets the tone. It controls the budget. It influences the culture. So while it's tempting to wish for a flashy, all-in, Steve Ballmer style owner, I think what Boston really needs is something a little more measured. Strategic, thoughtful, above board. Let's break it down. If we're talking about best players in the league right now, there are only a couple of names I'm definitively putting ahead of Tatum. Nikola Jokic is one of them. That's a no-brainer. The guy is a generational talent, possibly the best passing big man we've ever seen, and he just makes the game look effortless. His impact on the floor is undeniable. Giannis Antetokounmpo? Yeah, I'll hear that too. Two-time MVP, Finals MVP, total freak of nature who plays with relentless force and has completely changed the identity of the Bucks. Those two, Jokic and Giannis, I'm not arguing. You want to say they're the top two in the league? Fine. But then it gets interesting, because after that, there's this cluster of elite guys where Tatum absolutely belongs. Luka Doncic is obviously part of that group. Offensively, he's a machine, can score from anywhere, creates for everyone, and has that slow-motion, pick-you-apart style that's impossible to speed up. But here's the thing. Luka doesn't bring it on the defensive end. He's a liability on that side of the ball. And while that might not matter when he's dropping 35 and dishing 12 assists, it becomes an issue in the postseason when every possession counts. Tatum, meanwhile, defends at a high level every single night. He guards multiple positions, rotates well, and takes pride in his defense. That matters. And then there's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Love his game. Smooth, efficient, plays with patience, has that mid-range killer instinct. He's earned his spot in the conversation after what he did last season. But if we're stacking resumes, Tatum's got the edge. More playoff experience. More deep runs. More battles on the big stage. SGA's coming, no doubt, but Tatum's been there. He's done it, and he's still only in his mid-20s. The ceiling is still rising. I keep hearing people try to sneak guys like Jalen Brunson into that conversation too. Look, I respect Brunson. He's become a legitimate star, a leader, a guy who can take over games and lift a team. What he did for the Knicks last season was special. But let's not get carried away. He's not on Tatum's level. Tatum's size, versatility, and two-way game just put him in a different class. This isn't about East Coast bias or who had the hotter playoff run. It's about overall impact. And when you line up the tape, Tatum's a more complete player. So when people start making their MVP lists or top 5 players rankings and Tatum gets pushed down to 6, 7, or even outside the top 10, it's not just wrong. It's lazy. He's been one of the most consistent, durable, and dominant players over the last 3 seasons. And for a guy who gets criticized for not being clutch, he's had his fair share of big-time moments. Game winners, fourth-quarter takeovers, defensive stands. He's doing it all. But maybe the reason he gets overlooked sometimes is because he doesn't have the loudest personality. He's not doing crazy post-game interviews. He's not throwing shots at other players. He just shows up, puts in work, and lets his game talk. And in today's NBA landscape, where narrative can be louder than numbers, sometimes that quiet dominance goes underappreciated. The reality is, Tatum is right there in that top tier. If Jokic and Giannis are 1 and 2, Tatum is sitting comfortably in that next group with Luka, SGA, and maybe 1 or 2 others depending on how you feel. But he's not behind Anthony Edwards. He's not behind Devin Booker. And he's definitely not behind Jalen Brunson. Not yet. And speaking of players whose value might be flying under the radar, let's talk about Josh Giddey for a second. Now I know, Celtics fans aren't exactly foaming at the mouth for a guy who's not known for shooting or defense. But hear me out. There's something brewing here, and it's worth watching closely. Giddey's still a restricted free agent. It's September 3rd, and this dude still hasn't inked a deal. That's wild. Not because he's some franchise-altering player, but because his potential value is getting real interesting real fast. Last season, Giddey quietly started turning a corner. And if the shot he flashed in the second half of the year is real, and that's a big if, but still, he might just be a steal waiting to happen. The guy is 6'8", handles the ball like a point guard, sees the floor like a vet, and rebounds like a forward. And down the stretch last year, he was putting up near triple-doubles on the regular. I'm talking 21 points, 11 boards, 9 assists over his final 20 games. And most importantly, he was finally knocking down threes. Not in small, hesitant doses either. He was letting it fly. 4 for 6, 3 for 5, 4 for 4. Those are real numbers. That's not nothing. And sure, we remember the playoff series with the Thunder where he basically got played off the floor. That happened. But young players grow. They adapt. And by the time he landed with the Bulls, it felt like something clicked. Now, we're not saying he's suddenly Magic Johnson 2.0, but when a guy that young starts showing that kind of development, it's worth paying attention. And that's why I think Boston, not now, but down the line, should at least keep him on the radar. Because if that three-point shooting sticks, and if his playmaking continues to evolve, you're looking at a 6'8" secondary ball handler who can pass, rebound, and score at all 3 levels. That's not just a role player. That's a legit rotational piece on a contender. Maybe not a starter, maybe not a closer, but a guy who gives you depth, versatility, and some offensive firepower off the bench. And considering the Celtics are in a bit of a weird spot financially, they're going to need guys like that. Players who are undervalued, underpaid, but can still contribute in meaningful ways. Giddey might be one of those names, especially if the Bulls end up lowballing him or hesitating to commit long-term. Again, we're not there yet, but it's something to monitor. Meanwhile, as all this plays out, there's also been a bit of buzz around Paul Pierce this week. Yeah, the truth is back in the headlines. And as usual, he's got people fired up. This time, it's for some comments he made about LeBron James. And let me tell you, it's classic Paul Pierce energy. He basically said, LeBron's been the GOAT for a long time, but I think his time is up. Now, depending on how you read that, it can sound like either a compliment or a dig, or both. And knowing Pierce, that's probably exactly how he meant it. A little backhanded praise, a little salt, a little self-glorification thrown in. Tatum, Luka, SGA, Jokic, Anfernee. These are the new faces. These are the guys the league is going to market around for the next decade. And while LeBron is still a part of that picture, his role is evolving. More mentor, less alpha. Still dangerous, but not the same gravity as before. And that's okay. It happens to every great eventually, even the GOATs. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The basketball world is abuzz tonight as shocking rumors have solidified into an official announcement that has sent Celtics fans into a frenzy. Boston Celtics, one of the most storied franchises in NBA history, have officially confirmed the acquisition of dynamic guard Anfernee, a move that had been the subject of speculation and endless social media debates for weeks. Sources close to the team indicate that this is more than just a signing. It represents a strategic pivot in the Celtics' long-term vision. Simons, known for his explosive scoring, elite three-point shooting, and clutch performances, will bring a new dimension to a roster already loaded with talent. Analysts are already predicting the seismic impact his presence will have on both the offensive and defensive schemes, as the Celtics look to reclaim dominance in the Eastern Conference. Fans at the TD Garden reportedly erupted into chants and celebrations following the breaking news, while rival teams are said to be scrambling internally to reassess their strategies. Insiders hint that Simon's signing may also trigger a series of auxiliary trades, further shaking the balance of power across the league. The combination of Boston's championship culture with Simon's youthful exuberance is being called a match made in basketball heaven, though skeptics caution that chemistry and adaptation will be key challenges. The acquisition of Anfernee Simons by the Boston Celtics is being described by some experts as a game-changing maneuver that could redefine the team's trajectory for the upcoming seasons. Simons, whose career has been marked by flashes of brilliance and undeniable scoring prowess, is now set to anchor critical stretches of games where the Celtics have previously struggled to maintain consistent offensive output. Coaches and management have emphasized that this is more than a headline-grabbing acquisition. It is a meticulously planned addition intended to complement the existing core of stars while providing an unexpected spark in tight matchups. The whispers circulating in locker rooms and training facilities suggest that Simon's arrival has already influenced practice intensity, with veterans reportedly raising their competitive energy in response to the high-octane talent entering their ranks. Basketball analysts and rumor mills alike speculate that this signing could accelerate Boston's pursuit of championship glory, potentially creating a ripple effect throughout the Eastern Conference. Sports talk shows are already dedicating entire segments to dissecting the ramifications, debating whether Simon's explosive style fits the disciplined, structured approach Boston has been known for, while simultaneously acknowledging that his presence injects a much-needed unpredictability to the lineup, keeping opponents on constant alert. Fans and social media communities have erupted with a mix of exhilaration and disbelief over the Celtics' confirmation of Anfernee Simons' signing, with memes, posts, and speculative threads flooding platforms across the globe. The energy surrounding this development has transcended typical fan engagement, evolving into a full-blown online phenomenon where pundits, ex-players, and casual observers alike weigh in on potential scenarios for Simon's integration into Boston's system. Rumors are circulating that internal meetings with coaching staff and player leadership have been intensely focused on balancing Simon's offensive aggression with the Celtics' trademark defensive discipline, signaling that the team is leaving no stone unturned in maximizing his impact. Industry insiders whisper that rival franchises are experiencing heightened anxiety, with internal assessments underway to determine how to counteract a Celtics roster now fortified by a player capable of explosive scoring runs and pivotal plays in high-pressure situations. While some critics question whether Simon's style can mesh seamlessly with Boston's historically methodical game plans, proponents argue that his dynamic scoring potential and clutch instincts could be the catalyst for deep playoff runs, elevating the Celtics' profile and intimidating opponents league-wide. The chatter around Simon's arrival has not only dominated sports news cycles, but also sparked global conversations, positioning Boston as a team to watch with heightened anticipation. Speculation about how Anfernee Simons will redefine the Celtics' offensive strategies has reached fever pitch, with commentators dissecting every possible matchup scenario, rotation adjustment, and playbook modification that could arise from his integration. Sources suggest that Boston is preparing for a transformational shift, leveraging Simon's versatility as both a primary scorer and secondary playmaker, enabling the team to implement innovative offensive sets designed to exploit mismatches and create spacing opportunities previously unattainable. The rumor mills indicate that coaches are experimenting with dual guard lineups and high-tempo sequences in practice sessions, aiming to harness Simon's elite shooting and rapid decision-making under pressure. Observers note that the Celtics front office likely sees this move as an investment in both immediate competitiveness and long-term sustainability, with Simon's age and potential ceiling providing a window for several seasons of elite performance. Meanwhile, league insiders claim that trade chatter may intensify as other teams reassess their own rosters in light of Boston's newfound firepower, potentially igniting a cascade of moves aimed at counterbalancing the Celtics' strengthened backcourt. Fans continue to speculate on Simon's chemistry with key veterans, debating whether the combination of talent, athleticism, and confidence will elevate Boston to championship contention or require a period of adjustment, with every highlight reel moment fueling the rumor-driven narrative surrounding this blockbuster signing. Amid the whirlwind of speculation and analysis, the Boston Celtics announcement of Anfernee Simon's arrival has created an unprecedented buzz that extends far beyond traditional basketball coverage, permeating mainstream media, online forums, and even casual sports conversations in everyday life. Industry insiders suggest that the signing could have a cascading influence on the perception of the Celtics as a destination for emerging talent, reinforcing the franchise's ability to attract high-caliber players seeking both competitive success and exposure in a storied market. Rumors swirling around training facilities indicate that Simons has already made a marked impression on teammates, displaying work ethic, enthusiasm, and a flair for improvisation that may alter established dynamics and inspire elevated performance across the roster. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.